And we're out again. We're out on the street. Welcome back to another Gettin' Salty Experience episode, a brand new segment called Gone But Not Forgotten.
So what we're going to do in these segments, guys, is we're going to look at old firehouses that are no longer firehouses. We're going to show you pictures of back in the day, and then we're going to show you and talk about the building as they are right now.
Did you say old? Well,
Old.
Old brings one thought to my head. We got an old guy here today who's actually a historian on FDNY in New York City. It's none other than Chief Steve.
I'm Chief Steve, I'm here to check your socks. If your OT is high, I'll send you to the rock.
Nice legs.
There he is.
Morning, boys. How are you?
All right, guys, so all kidding aside, this is all about history, this is all about the FDNY and all about Old Manhattan. And Chief Steve is, in fact, an expert on this topic.
Semi-expert.
Semi-expert.
Semi-expert. Not a total expert. But we're in front of 31 Engine here. And 31 Engine was one of the companies, one of the firehouses that was built by the LeBron family and son. And it's one of their very ornate firehouses. And the really interesting thing about this particular firehouse, other than what you see when you look at the firehouse itself, is the way it was built. It was built very similar to the way Venice was built. It was built on wood pilings because we're standing what used to be a lake here. So when they filled in the lake in the late in the early 1800s, there was still a lot of groundwater here. So in order for them to build, they had to put these wood pilings down, which is what they did at the time. And they knew that as long as the wood pilings stayed wet, it would be fine. And they did stay wet for about 100 years, but eventually the lake dried up. And that was right about the time when they sold the building in 1983 to a company that bought it for $400,000. What they didn't realize was it bought more than the building. They bought a lot of trouble because the pilings had dried up, and it cost them $800,000 to fix the foundation of the building.
So guys, as you can see, this is a 3-bay firehouse. So Chief Steve, who was actually housed in this building?
Well, as you can see, if you look above the bays, you had 2 bays that 31 Engine was at. Years ago, a lot of companies had 2 pieces. So obviously 31 Engine had 2 pieces. Over here you have the 2nd Battalion. Now 31 Engine has been disbanded, the 2nd Battalion is not. 2nd Battalion is over on the 6th Avenue and Houston with 24 and 5 Engine now. And they've been a couple other places in the interim.
All right, Chief, that's a lot of great history. So where do you want to head next?
I think we should go down to Chambers Street to see 29 Engine.
All right, we're going to 29 engine. We'll see you over there.
All right. Wait a minute, I just want to correct something. While we were at 31 Engine there, I used the word lake to describe what they built it on. I should have used the word pond because it was actually built on Collect Pond that dried up.
I know what you should have done. You should have wore pants.
You know what? It's okay. Even chiefs make mistakes too. It's gonna be okay, kid.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Come on.
Yeah. You think she is naked?
All right, guys, here we are on our second leg of the journey, Engine 29. This building was built in 1862.
So in 1862, guys, it was actually for the 3rd precinct for the New York City Police Department, but it was converted to a hospital in 1875.
In 1897, this became the quarters for Engine 29. And I think Chief Steve, he may have been working there at that time. I don't know, he caught a couple of jobs, but he's got a couple of good stories about this firehouse.
Yeah, they came in here in 1897. They were hardly here when they had a major fire directly across the street at 161, 163 Chambers, right across the street in a cold storage warehouse. A lot of goods stored in there. The smoke was very toxic, and they kept pulling guys out and bringing them to the apparatus floor here, and they were acting very irregularly. They were just acting crazy, screaming and yelling. Most of them were revived, but one guy perished. A guy from Engine 7 perished at the fire here. They did a lot of, this was a very industrial area back in the day, and a lot of the fires that they went to had a lot of chemicals and things in them in this particular area. We'll find out later, and Engine 27 responded to quite a few fires where they also had the chemicals and had chemical fires. One other thing, in 1983, this building was was bought by a man named Omansky, and he had the building for 20 years. Now, if you go back only to 2003, there was a very odd thing happened here. This guy Omansky called a real estate developer, a man named Schlosser, to come and see him at the building here. The man Schlosser came in the morning, started talking to him. Whatever happened went wrong. Omansky punched the guy in the face, knocked him on his bed, taped him up, tied him up, and put him in a concealed area in the building here. The guy was there for 24 hours before he finally escaped, kicking through this concealed area. He waited outside here. They got the cops and they arrested Omansky. But that was only 17 years ago.
That's incredible. All right, so Chief Steve, what's next? Where are we heading?
We're heading down to 27 Engine, which was on Franklin Street.
All right, we'll see you over there on the way.
All right, here we are down in Tribeca, an old area of the city. Cobblestone streets, buildings across the street from 1856. We're on the site of the volunteer company, the North River Engine Company, dating sometime around the early 1800s, we don't know exactly. In 1865, the pay department moved in, that was Engine 27.
All right, so this building was built in 1882 for Engine 27. They lasted until 1975 when they were disbanded. One of the stories that really sticks out to me is as we were walking over here, Chief Steve was talking about an engineman from 27 Engine who actually made 2 spectacular grabs. So we're going to hear that story now.
Yeah, they had a fire. Engine 27 responded to a fire on May 30th, 1902 on 209 West Street. The tenants on the top floor had 2 boarders there, and they escorted the family out, but then they had to go back up for the 2 boarders, and the top floor was already engulfed in flames, and the 2 engine men removed both boarders, and the World Telegraph was the report of the day, reported on the heroic rescues. They also reported that Engine 27 responded to many chemical fires. As I said earlier, at Engine 29, this became a big pharmaceutical area here, and they had many chemical fires. The World Telegraph reported that all engine members of 27 Engine were wiped out over a 3-year period, with only William McGurn surviving. However, I can't find the records of them in the line of duty deaths of the FDNY. So I have to do a little more investigating as far as that's concerned. But those are the reports of the day versus what we have in our official records.
Excellent, good stuff. So where we go next?
Where do you think we should go?
How about 13 Engine?
How about 13 Engine? Do you know where they are?
No.
I didn't think so.
Wait, you 2 walk off this way, you walk off this way.
All right, here we are now down in Soho at the quarters of Engine Company number 13. This building was actually a private dwelling first, and then in 1853, they built the firehouse for the Oceanic Volunteer Company number 11.
All right, so in 1865, they became the Metropolitan Steam Engine Company number 13. In 1881, they renovated the building to its present form. And I'm sure there is a ton of history that we're going to learn about. So I'm going to say, why, Chief Steve, what is it that you have for us today?
Well, actually, there are 2 very interesting fire stories concerning Engine Company 13. The first actually involves exposure 2 here, 97 Worcester Street. On the night of May 11th, 1903, Lieutenant Irving was looking out the front windows of the firehouse when he heard an explosion on the 5th floor at 97 Worcester Street. He immediately ran up to the roof of the building of the firehouse here, lowered a rope, and had them tie a scaling ladder to it. He attached the scaling ladder to the rope and climbed to the 7th story, rescued the 2 people that were working at a petticoat factory up there, and had them lowered to the firehouse and then down to the street.
Balls, I
That's
say.
incredible.
Balls.
All right, that was just an incredible story. I'm sure there's more. Why, Chief Steve, what other stories do you have for us today?
Yes, Engine 13 actually responded to quite a few multiple alarms during their history, and there were actually some right on their block here, as this one was. The next one was at 116, 118 Worcester on the night of April 10th, 1920, where they responded to a 3rd alarm. While they were ascending the fire escape with a line, an explosion occurred, blew out the windows, and they got cut with glass so badly that one of the members required a tourniquet to his arm to stop the bleeding. Then on the night of July 17th, 1922, they responded to a fire at 10 Jane Street. They had a covering officer. His name was Lieutenant John J. Schottmeyer. And unfortunately, an explosion occurred, knocked down a wall, and he was killed, tragically killed.
Amazing stories, amazing. So, Chief Steve, where are we headed next?
We're going to follow 13 Engine to where they went, 155 Mercer Street.
155 Mercer.
We'll see you over there.
Stage left. All right, here we are on our final leg of the journey, Mercer Street. What?
What? What's that?
What?
What?
What the? Clean shaven. Whoa, correct socks. Nice yams.
All right, Chief Steve, let us know what you have on this building. I know you got some good stories, I'm sure.
We're standing in front of Firemen's Hall, which it says on the top of the building there. And this was the Firemen's Hall going back to the Volley days. You had engine company, Volunteer Engine Company 5 here, and Ladder Company 6 were stationed here during the Volley days. In 1865, when it became the paid Metropolitan Department, it still remained Firemen's Hall, but now it was the headquarters for the fire department. And it remained the headquarters until 1887, when they moved up to where 67th Street, where 39 and 16 are located. In the interim period, though, before when we left 13 Engine was here from 48 to 74. Division 1 was here at one time, Division 2 was here at one time, Battalion 3 was here, Battalion 2, Battalion 5, and numerous other companies were here throughout its history. Eventually, the fire department left this building. Engine 13 and Ladder 20 went to Lafayette Street, where their last quarters were, where Ladder 20 is still quartered, where the medical division used to be, and now the 1st Division is. This building was redone in 1854, and when they redid the building, in a cornerstone of the building, they put the history of the fire department from 1816, a copy of the Constitution, a copy of the local newspapers, and some other valuable information. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to find the cornerstone.
All right, so for Kevin and myself, we just wanted to say that we really appreciate Chief Steve coming down here, giving us a history lesson. We love it. I'm sure you guys love it. And I'm going to give Chief Steve a second here to just tell us what he thought about the whole day, or forever hold your peace.
It's been a very interesting experience working with these boys. I'm glad that I love the history of the New York City Fire Department, and I'm glad that we were able to share this, and hopefully we'll be able to do some other work in some other areas of the city that need to be told, because there's a lot of history in the New York City Fire Department, and we'd be very glad to give it to you. Thank you.
He's a good sport, right, Louis?
He is a good sport. I told you he was going to laugh a little bit.
He did laugh. He saw a smile on his face. All right, guys, so that's our first episode of Gone But Not Forgotten in the can. Thanks for joining us. Check us out on our Instagram, Facebook, and of course, if you want cool apparel like this, www.gettingsaltyapparel.com. Until we see you again, stay low and go.
See you at the big one.